Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. It is the Thursday before Cubs convention, and we are all just living in Jed Hoyer's world. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo, Ryan Herrera. The once silent Chicago Cubs are now wheeling and dealing out, making moves. We'll talk about the Imanaga contract here in a second, and the details of that are finally out, and they are very interesting, but also, can we read between the lines a little bit on that contract? Hello to everybody in the live chat. Yes, we are going to talk about the deal. Also now official, confirmed by our Ryan Herrera. Cubs have traded one of their top prospects, and it appears they now have their third baseman potentially for this season. Just a reaction to the last 24 hours, Cody. Like, are you surprised he finally has started to heat this up a little bit?
Well,
I don't think it has anything to do with the timing of the convention, by the way.
No, I don't think so either. All I can say is that we're starting to see how this team is going to shape up come opening day. Obviously, still more news to be made. But, I mean, this contract for Shota Imanaga is mind-blowing in some ways. It's such a team-friendly deal that could turn into a really good deal for him if he performs well. Mm-hmm. I think in the short term it's great for the Cubs, and even long term, depending on how he transitions to Major League Baseball. So I love the contract for Imanaga. This trade that was made today, I mean, it was a roller coaster because at first it was Almonte that was getting thrown out there that he was being traded, and I look him up on Fangraphs, and of course as the classic Delmetrics view in my head, I'm like, what's the ERA? Oh, it's 5.06. What is Jed doing? What are we sending the Dodgers for a guy who had a 5 ERA last year? And then
I thought Mervis was going to be the guy,
and so that at first I really thought it was just for a reliever, and then to hear that there was a bigger piece coming back. And then to see that it was Michael Busch, the third base prospect, or third and second base prospect for the Dodgers, number 2 via MLB pipeline, coming back, and then finding out that the Cubs are only sending 2 minor leaguers, I got really excited because this is what we've talked about, right? The reason that I really love this trade is that the Cubs have depth on the farm. They have all kinds of depth on the farm, and the fact that the 2 guys that they sent for this guy, they're not going to be in the major leagues until 2026 at the earliest, I would say. Maybe 2025 if they really take off in the Dodgers system. But either way, as long as the Cubs continue to develop like they have been over the last 2-3 years, they're going to find another Jackson Ferris or a Zaire Hope. They will, as long as they continue to develop the way that they have, to draft the way that they have, they're going to find 2 other guys like this. This is how a good organization starts to shape up the way that we want the Cubs to go, right? Mm-hmm. Again, yes, I would like them to be at the top tier market in free agency. But when it comes to making trades like this, to get a guy who's in the top 50 of MLB prospects to play a position that you definitely needed, top 2 in the Dodger system, to play a position that you absolutely needed to fill a hole of, that you've had a hole in since Chris Bryant was traded in 2021. The fact that you get a young positional player to take over that spot is great, and he's going to have years of control, and hopefully, obviously, there's a risk in every free agent signing or trade. Hopefully, he excels. I saw Jeff Passan tweet that he projects to be something like a Max Muncy. I mean, this team has needed left-handed power, man, and it kind of gives Cubs a little leverage now when it comes to the Bellinger sweepstakes. I still think he's probably going to be a Cub. But yeah, to fill that need and with a guy that has all kinds of control is great. It's a great move in my opinion. And at the end of the day, whether Jackson Ferris or Zaire Hope turn out to be good for the Dodgers, which honestly, I'll just go ahead and say it, I think Ferris will at least be good for the Dodgers because he was a top 10 prospect for the Cubs in the system. And I know a lot of us in the chat, and I was high on him, but the fact that he's probably not going to be in the majors for at least another 2-3 years, that hopefully by then the Cubs have already found another guy that have already drafted another guy that has the same type of upside. That's the way that I look at it. Everyone wants to go back and look at all the trades the Cubs have lost. Well, the Cubs development-wise have significantly improved since those days. So I personally am happy about the deal. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to see what Michael Busch does for the Chicago Cubs come opening day.
I did see that we have breaking news in the live YouTube chat. Our guy Gary Ross has now given up on Slaughter at third base. There it is.
What was your favorite part of the Slaughter era?
Welcome to the live YouTube chat, by the way. Make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. We appreciate it. Give us all the thumbs up, the happy smiles, and all those other things.
The happy smiles.
Yeah. Smiles,
likes.
thumbs up, whatever.
The likes.
The
Hit the like
likes.
button.
Happy likes.
Please subscribe if you're new.
Barb already hates the deal.
Initial reaction. We'll talk more about it. We are hoping to have Greg Huss from Northside Bound come talk about the prospects and all of that a little bit coming up later in the show. So we're going to circle back to it and talk Imanaga in a second. But initial reaction, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that you look at it and it's a deal that feels right for both sides.
Yeah.
The Dodgers, I mean, none of us knew anything about Michael Busch before today, right? Obviously, we're not following Dodgers prospects, but having looked into it a little bit in the last hour plus since the deal went through, he's been blocked. He's a top 50 prospect, as you said, Cody, but he's been blocked by various Dodgers at the major league level. Got some run last year, but didn't have immediate success, and it wasn't like a long extended opportunity. But he's a top 50 prospect for a reason. I'm seeing Max Muncy comps. I'm seeing potential for middle of the order bat with a lot of slug, which, especially on the left side, like we've talked about, that's what the Cubs need. As far as defensive positioning goes, I know they're trying to mold. The Dodgers had been trying to mold him into like a third baseman. He had a lot of time there last year in the minor leagues, and most of his games played in the majors were there. I am looking at scouting reports. I am seeing that his long-term potential still may be best at first base, so that may throw a wrench in some things. But corner infield prospect who's already debuted at the major league level, is major league ready, should definitely be in the running for an opening day roster in the starting lineup. It's a good trade, and then obviously Almonte is one of those veteran relievers that the Cubs are going to try to bring in, do some work with, and see what they can get out of him. 2022 was really, really good out of the Dodgers bullpen. So that's another, it may be like a little bit of a flyer, like what can we get out of this guy? But we've seen the Cubs, for the most part, the last few years have that kind of success. And then on the other side, Zaire Hope was drafted in the 11th round last year. He's years away. And Jackson Ferris is years away and he has real impact potential. There's a reason the Cubs did the whole go under slot with Cade Horde so they can go over slot with Jackson Ferris and get him to sign out of high school. There's a reason they did that when they scouted him, thought he had that kind of potential. But, years away, and as Cody said, the Cubs hope that by the time Jackson Ferris is to debut in Major League Baseball, they've already drafted the next Jackson Ferris, or they've signed or traded for a major league guy who's going to take up that rotation spot anyway.
Go ahead.
That's what they need to have belief in this pitching infrastructure and what they've done. Yeah, again, Jackson Ferris, everything we've heard from scouts or our prospect nerd friends that love Jackson Ferris, very high on him, and for good reason. But the Cubs are in a position where they needed impact talent now. Especially major league ready impact talent. Michael Busch could be that, right? We have to see how he does with an extended run at the major league level, but he could be that. And Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope just were not ready to impact the major league roster this year, potentially not next year, you know? So I say this is a good trade for both sides because the Cubs get players who can impact their major league team right now, and the Dodgers are getting prospects aren't on their 40-man roster now, and you know they can wait on those guys. They have the major league talent where they can wait on those guys. The Cubs are in a position where if you can get controllable major league talent that's ready to controllable talent that's ready to impact you at the major league level now, it's the move to make. And when you compare just the both sides of the deal, I think on paper right now it looks good for both sides, and you know obviously we'll see where it ends up, right? Where in the end, a few years from now, we'll talk about it, but it looks like a good deal for both sides.
Even if it doesn't go well, right? Even if those two guys end up being great stars for the Dodgers, it still makes sense now. You need a first baseman and a third baseman, two glaring holes we've talked about on this roster. You now have a top 50 prospect that can fill one of those holes, potentially, right?
Yes. And I don't remember who said it, but someone in the chat said that he's a prospect because he was being blocked.
Right.
Like, he probably would have made his debut earlier if he wasn't being blocked by the Dodgers. And I saw a video.
He played. He was batting one. He
he
12
played 20,
hits, batted 167 last year.
Just he played
a brief
27
appearance.
games.
Yeah.
He played 27 games with Dodgers last year. But in AAA, I mean, the numbers are pretty impressive. I mean, 150 weighted runs created plus, 323 batting average, on base of 431, slugged 618 in 98 games, 27 homers, 79 RBIs, walk rate 9.9%. Walk rate 13.9%, and strikeout rate was 18.8%.
Yeah,
he dominated AAA.
Yeah,
I expect him to be on the major league roster come opening day.
And Pacific Coast League.
And you look at it too, and that he played 200 games at the AAA level, had almost 1,000 plate appearances at the AAA level. He was blocked. He just did not. The Dodgers did not have the opportunities for him to get everyday playing time at the major league level and see if he can thrive. The Cubs do, as you mentioned, first and third base, which are potentially the two positions he could man. They have openings there right now. This is a guy that could fit into those two slots. So, no, again, it's a good trade, a good prospect that a lot of people are high on, especially offensively. And, you know, you see what you could do with him on the Chicago Cubs because the Dodgers couldn't give him that opportunity. Yes. Cubs can. I look at it, and I think it's the right move for the Cubs to make. Like, yes, giving up someone like Jackson Ferris hurts if you were high on him, and a lot of people are, but it's the kind of move you have to make if you're trying to win.
You want to talk about being blocked. It's like Gleyber Torres was here. They have a surplus of something. They're trying to win now, and he wasn't finding a way to really break into their lineup, so that they moved on and traded him, and they think they've got back younger prospects that can be high reward.
And again, I really want to push down on this for the people who hate this trade in the chat. Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope are not going to play in the major leagues for at least another 2 seasons. I don't like. I feel like I don't think that I don't think one team or the other won this trade. You can't say that yet, but you're getting a guy who is in the top 50 of the top 100 prospects, who was blocked, who's played great at the levels that he's been on, except for the 27 games he's played at the major league level. You're getting a guy who's young, controllable, has shown success throughout his journey through the minor leagues, and was a first-round pick, mind you, for two guys who, yes, they have high upside, but they're not going to play for the Dodgers for at least another 2 years. So I think that there's incredible value on both sides. Of course, yeah, in 2-3 years, if Jackson Ferris develops into what I think he will, which will be probably pretty good, yeah, we'll see how it works out. But hopefully by then the Cubs are definitely contending every year in and year out, and have already developed their own guys that are, you're not even sitting here wondering, what if we had Jackson Ferris? That's the way that I look at it, and that's honestly how most people, in my opinion, should look at it if the Cubs continue to develop players the way they have. We can't sit here and just bank on every single one of these prospects to contribute to this team. They have a boatload of guys. They had to move some dudes to fill out this roster and get their way to playoff contention. That's just the fact of the matter. So the way that they've been developing and the way they've been drafting these last handful of years, I have no doubt they're going to find another pitcher that we all get excited about, get high on. That's
or they just sign one.
Or sign one.
They got the financial flexibility. They have, again, if they go into things with, flexing their big market muscles, right? Like they have the resources, they have the financial flexibility. They could always just go and sign someone when they become available, and that's the guy that slots in the top, near the top of your rotation, if that's the level that Jackson Ferris were ever to get to.
Sure.
Which is still an if. He's young. He's never pitched at the major league level. He's young. You could always go get a proven major league guy that you can slot into the top of your rotation. That's what the Cubs have the ability to do with everything they've done the last couple of years. So,
and that's
so like but I agree with you in the draft wise. But it's like even if you aren't able to draft the next Jackson Ferris, you have the resources to go sign someone that fits that spot anyway.
Yeah. Credit to the live YouTube chat here at CHGO, our crew, for coming up with the fact that the Dodgers now have Ferris and Buehler. Excellent point. Excellent point. We do have a super chat, right? Super chat from Michael Wagner, $5. Feels like he could be this year's Nolan Jones, who was blocked in Cleveland and broke out after a trade to Colorado.
He killed us whenever the Cubs went to Colorado in September. Yeah.
You know what else? People are asking, how does this impact morale? And if Greg Huss can come on, we can ask him a lot of that stuff. I think this, when people say, how does it impact morale? How does it impact Shaw? Because people were thinking Shaw might be the guy this year. Yeah. That's okay. It gives him time to develop. It doesn't rush him.
No rush.
Mm-hmm. And I've said it a million times, the best thing you can have is too many good guys at one position, because then whether it's Shaw or the player they just acquired or another player that they still might acquire, then you move them. Somebody gets moved in a year and you get the value back. You get your Ferris coming back the other way. It's it's a game of moving chips around. Right now, today, this helps the Cubs fill a position that they hadn't really filled yet this offseason. Whether it's third or first, I don't care. This guy's going to get a realistic shot at one of those positions.
Yeah, having too many good players is a good problem to have.
That's right. And drafting well and developing well will let you continue to do that.
I think people who might be down on this trade, I think maybe another trade that could be coming, perhaps for a pitcher, might sway them a little bit differently on this move. Because we just don't know what's coming up next. But they definitely needed the left-handed bat, and there's a ton of potential here. I mean, I understand that he hasn't proved anything at the major league level yet, so yes, there's risk, but there's also risk in, giving a ton of money to a guy and then him not panning out, So I think that this move was a smart, fair move. It's not. I think when we look back on this trade in 3 or 4 years, I think we will all think that both teams won this trade. I don't think that it will go one way or another, personally.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Imanaga deal, because the contract deals came out, and why I started the show by saying we're all just living in Jed's world. It does seem like he really got we make fun of him for wanting the best deal all the time and kind of missing out on the big guys. It does seem like he got a real team-friendly deal. Now, we don't know what Imanaga, we've seen all the projections for what he could be and how they're going to rework this, and he'll adjust and he'll throw less home runs in Major League Baseball. They're going to fix this, and he's going to be a strikeout guy, all of it. But it looks like they have a rotation guy, and they have at one point, people were talking about $100 million for him. Now you're looking at potentially a deal could be as short as 2 years, or it could be 4 years. And it's up to the player to prove that he's worth it. But even if he proves that he's worth it, it still seems like it's a reasonable deal, right? Like the Cubs have a chance to walk away from it if it doesn't look like that translates.
Yeah.
So the risk is very low on the Cubs' part. And I don't know. I think he's given himself a lot of flexibility to still do other things, including Cody Bellinger. I don't think the trade today means Cody Bellinger's not back with the Cubs. I think it gives him a little leverage to say, Oh, we do have a guy who could play first base. We could play Mervis. We could play Wisdom there. We could play yada, yada, yada over at first base, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then he still can play center field. I just think there's so many options. I think this signing, though, Imanaga, is kind of under the radar because of the value they got for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we're talking about financial flexibility. It's a deal that, it's a very weird, like, complex deal, right? Because it's 2 years, pretty much guaranteed, and then after the second, after the third, the Cubs have the option to extend it to 5 years, and if they decline to extend it, then he has the option to I think he has the option to opt out then, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a very weird, complex deal. Allows him flexibility, allows the Cubs flexibility, but also at this point it keeps the AA value low. Obviously, if the deal gets extended out or based on the years, the AAV will change, but it keeps the AAV low. They're not paying him 9 figures, which was like some of the rumors we were hearing like last week, the week before, that I was getting up to 9 figures, which surprised all of us considering what we kind of heard going into the offseason about Imanaga. But yeah, it's like you're not paying Yamamoto money and you're not expecting to get Yamamoto. I think what we've said or what we've heard and kind of the consensus is that like if he could be a really solid 3 for what you're getting. And for the price that the Cubs get him at, that's a value deal. And I think that's something else we've seen. Like a lot of the people, national guys that are reacting to it is like, this could be the best value deal of the offseason. Like it could be one of our favorite signings just based on the value that they get for it. So, I like the terms of the contract. It allows the Cubs flexibility, allows Imanaga flexibility, and should it all work out, it could allow them to have a 5-year partnership, So, and to your point, again, with the financial flexibility, it keeps your payroll low right now, so you still have plenty of room to go out and get a Cody Bellinger, or if you so choose to go get Rhys Hoskins, or whatever it is. If you still want to go get Jordan Montgomery, even, right? Like you have the room and the flexibility to still go make moves this offseason and then off seasons to come, right? This deal is not hurting your flexibility at all, and to be honest, it feels like a under market deal for. Yes, he's an unproven pitcher at the major league level, right? But everything we've heard, scouting reports, and they have. The scouting reports now are a lot better on guys coming from whether it's Japan or Korea or wherever, right? Scouting reports and kind of being able to project how those guys will translate to Major League Baseball, a lot better than they used to be. And everything we've heard is that he's going to be at least a number 3 pitcher, and for what the Cubs are paying and what they could get out of him remains to be seen. But it feels like he could really outperform the value of this deal.
Yeah, no. Like I was
especially when we talk about how much the cost of pitching rises every year.
Right. So, kind of like I was saying earlier, it doesn't hold the Cubs back from going out and adding to the rotation in 2025. Because at this point, I'm not ride or die, or I'm not all in on Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell. Corbin Burns is going to be available next offseason if he goes to free agency. There's a lot. The free agent class is a lot better in 2025, and the only reason I say this at this point is that I still have not forgot the article that Sharma put out from The Athletic about how the Cubs are not going all in this offseason. They are, I believe, going to do enough to make this team a division winner. And then I think after this coming season, perhaps they might go all in if things work out the way that they hope, with prospects, with more growth from major league players that are young. I think next offseason could be the offseason that they really do play at the top of the market, and you can go get a number 1 starting pitcher or go get the biggest bat on the market. I'm not going to talk myself into Juan Soto, but whatever. I think that they will play at the top of the market next offseason if things play out the way they hope they do with some of these young guys and guys that are already on the major league roster that continue to grow. So with this deal, to bring it back around, the fact that they could opt out after 2 years, Imanaga's not going to be blocking any one particular player, whether it's a free agent or even a guy on the farm. He's not going he's not going to block, whoever the next guy after Cade Horton is. You know what I mean? So that's why I love the deal. And, of course, if he pitches way better than what we expect, then sure, you can extend it to the 5 years to where he makes $80 million over that time then too. So there's nothing about this deal that anyone should be upset about or complain about. Like it's a very, very good deal for both sides. Like Imanaga is going to come to the Cubs with the motivation to pitch as well as he possibly can to make more money, and the Cubs are going in pretty much risk-free with this. So there's a lot to like with this.
Even 4 years, 53 is very affordable.
Right.
But I think if you also zoom out and look at what they've had since the end of the season, you've essentially replaced Marcus Strowman in the rotation. Now, I don't know if it's going to be apples to apples. It may not be, but Strowman wasn't a consistent pitcher last year anyway, partially because of injuries. But you've replaced Strowman's spot in the rotation and still have like $8 million more to spend on something else, right? So I still say his opting out was a huge favor to the Cubs. Strowman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now that you were able to get a 2-year deal for Imanaga, that you could back out quickly out of that too if you wanted to as well.
Not necessarily.
It's given them great flexibility.
Not necessarily, because I get the feeling that if the Cubs were to want to back out of the contract, like,
well, you don't want that to be the case. What you'd like to have is him actually pitch for the 80.
Yeah.
You'd like him to be so good that the Cubs just pick it up and say, hey, we're doing 5 and 80. This guy's been more than worth it.
Yeah,
right.
That's
the
for
goal.
80. Because what it's 4 for 53 guaranteed, and then obviously like the opt out things have potential. Well, because if they don't extend it to the 5 years after that second and third years, then he gets the ability to opt out. So, but I mean, by that point, I think we'll have a solid idea of what he is at the big leagues and where the value in this deal is.
Yeah, you hope after 2 years the Cubs are like, ooh, let's take the rest of this.
Yeah. Again, it's a good deal, I think, for both sides, as far as flexibility goes, and not a move that will break the Cubs' bank now or for future seasons. It's a move that adds someone that a lot of people believe will be an impact arm for the rotation. Not top of the rotation guy, but definitely an impact arm, and it leaves a lot of room for financial flexibility, which, knowing this front office and how they operate, having that financial flexibility is huge.
We will get to your super chats coming up in just a second, but first I want to tell you about Midtown Athletic Club. 4 Chicagoland locations: Palatine in the northwest burbs, Bannockburn on the north shore, Willowbrook southwest suburbs, and Midtown Athletic Club and Hotel right here downtown in Bucktown and Lincoln Park. The Palatine location just had a multi-million-dollar transformation of the club. It's finishing up here in early 2024. They are offering, Midtown is, no initiation fees right now during January. Got a couple weeks left here at Bannockburn, Palatine, and Willowbrook. Those locations, no initiation fee in January. It's great for single people, families, if you're looking for lifestyle changes. It's the nicest fitness club I've ever been in, and it's something else. Yoga, boxing, cycling, incredible locker rooms, best tennis courts and programming in the sport, USTA certified, pickleball, paddleball, you name it, they've got it. Head over to midtown.com/CHGO to find out more and to tour the Midtown Athletic Club nearest you.
Yeah, and while you're there, sometimes when I go to Midtown Athletic Club and I get on the old treadmill or the elliptical or whatever,
credit to you.
I'm also on my phone looking at the sportsbook because I can multitask. All right, so yes, Luke, credit to me. And when I'm doing that, I'm on CIRCA Sportsbook. Listen, tonight, Illinois 4.5-point favorite against Michigan State. They're 32-8. 32-8 against Big Ten opponents at home the last 4 years. Give me the Illini to cover the spread in Champaign tonight. And you can make that bet on CIRCA Sportsbook. You can go to Waukegan and place the bet, all right? But some of the reasons that I like CIRCA, outside of the fact that I can go and place that bet on Illinois tonight, is their tight money line splits. Games will strive to be a -110 split on the CIRCA Sports menu, unlike other sportsbooks which may use -115 or -120. CIRCA Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets, especially compared to other books. CIRCA Sports does not limit players based on their winnings either. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players. They encourage bettors to download and explore all sports betting apps available to compare the lines from each book. So I always like to emphasize that because I've had the experience with other books where they have taken away boosts or how much money I can put down on certain things with boosts. CIRCA does not do that. That's one thing that makes them one of the best. So, and finally, their customer service is my favorite part because they don't use chatbots, and I wish chatbots would leave the world in 2024, but they're still here, unfortunately. All aspects of the app are being run by the same people that runs the main CIRCA Sportsbook at CIRCA Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, the second greatest place on earth, right below Wrigley Field. All right, so download the CIRCA Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for CIRCA events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyourreallywinning.com.
Godmother Barb is on record as hating this deal.
She
does not like this deal. She doesn't like trading prospects, even if it includes other prospects that are higher rated.
Trading good young players for more good young players.
Let's just make sure she's on the record.
She is on the record.
3 years from now is saying this is a bum deal. Bum of the week, she's saying, Jen Hoyer.
I got to say that I think she's more mad about this trade than the Kimbrel trade. And that's saying something because she comes in this chat every day and complains about the Kimbrel trade. Which I still don't understand because that trade's pretty much a wash at this point.
But currently the highest rated prospect is coming to the Cubs.
Yes, currently.
Yes, currently.
I have a new, what was your favorite part of blank era?
Oh, yes.
Deal's official, the Dodgers and Cubs trade. To make room on the 40-man roster, the Cubs designate catcher Brian Serven for assignment.
No! What was your favorite part of the Brian Serven era? That breakdown video I made of him. My heart is broken. My heart is broken. Anyway.
All right, we got a couple super chats here. Our guy Fernando, $1.99. It's a win for both teams. Shorter wait for the Cubs. I do love that part.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wait any longer.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wait any longer. And then Mitch says for a $10 super chat on Hap's podcast, Dakota said he heard that Belly will announce him signing at their live podcast at CubsCon. He's obviously joking, trying to stir the pot, but I'm taking it and running with it.
Don't let me talk myself into it, brother.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Hap's been listening to us.
Like I said,
Absolutely.
Bellinger would get a stone cold level pop if that happens.
Absolutely. Is our friend Greg Huss here?
It sounded like he was dialing in.
Yeah, he is almost here.
He's not wearing a hat. This is different.
Here he is.
He's ready to go.
No hat, Greg.
No hat, Greg.
Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear us?
We can hear you, brother.
I can't hear you guys. Sorry.
Oh.
Come on,
He's
Sarah.
working on it. Sarah's
Can
working
you
on
hear
it.
us?
Again, Cubs have traded Jackson Ferris, one of their better prospects, for sure. No question about it. But they've also gotten back a guy who's a top 50 prospect, the number 2 prospect ranked by some in the Dodgers organization. Greg Huss, can you hear us now?
I got you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfect.
There we go.
Co-founder of Northside Bound, Greg Huss. Oh, we always know him as one of these super prospect guys. Following
Prospect
the
nerds,
Cubs,
as we refer to them.
Yeah, no, you've said that. I didn't say
I have
nerd.
taken his note about how Cade Horton is going to make 6 or 7 starts in the minors next season and go straight to the Cubs sometime midseason. I've taken that quote that he said on this show and ran with it. I have talked myself fully into it, and I can't wait. All credit to Greg Huss.
You get to yell at me when it doesn't happen, right?
Yes, I will yell at you when it doesn't happen, but
I love it.
This has been my off season, Greg. This is what I've been holding all hopes and dreams on.
All right, Greg. We want to know just your initial reaction when you see the names and it becomes a 4-player deal. Your thumbs up or your thumbs down, and then I want to talk about the guys first that are going from the Cubs to the Dodgers. So, what did you give it, a thumbs up or a thumbs down when you first?
Yeah. So my
we lost
my
it.
initial reaction was
Oh, here we go.
probably thumbs down, but I think I want to be. Oh, are we good?
Yeah, we're good now. We're good.
think
I
he's
think
bad.
my initial reaction was probably originally a thumbs down, but I will say that I think it's a higher likelihood that the Cubs wind up on top with this trade. I mean, they got a guy in Michael Busch who is ready for the major league level. They traded away two guys that in Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope that are still years down the road, years away from even potentially making the major league. So I think overall, my initial reaction is thumbs up, even though it pains me to trade those two guys away.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely a way to look at it is that, you're pushing the chips in a little bit more for the future. Not the way they would have if they had Shohei Ohtani, but it's a way of saying, no, we do want to win now. You have to eventually use some of these players in other ways. What do you think it means for Shaw? What do you think it means for Morel? What do you think it means for guys like Madrigal and Masterboni?
Yeah, I think as far as Shaw, I think Morel, I don't think the Cubs know what they're doing with Morel. So even after this trade, I think they still stand on the same status on Morel as they did earlier. With Shaw, it gets interesting too, because I think that with Matt Shaw, now you don't necessarily need to rush him to the big league level. I think that there are a lot of people really excited to see Matt Shaw in 2024 in Chicago, manning third base, and there this year and into the future. Now it's like, all right, if Michael Busch is your starting third baseman this year and moving forward, now Matt Shaw, take your time in developing him. You don't need to rush him up Nico Horner style to the big league level, Zach Neto style. Like he can spend the year in 2024 in the minor leagues, and then we're looking at 2025. And if he hits his way to Chicago in 24, then that's awesome. Then you find a place for Matt Shaw, and that's fine. You worry about that later. It's just it kind of slows the process and makes it more deliberate instead of like, oh, we got to get Matt Shaw to Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you've been able to do the research on Michael Busch in the last hour and a half, 2 hours or so. But I was telling these guys, like, I was looking at some scouting reports. There are scouting reports out there that, like, obviously the Dodgers were trying to mold him into this third base type, but that his long-term future may be at first base. I mean, if that's the case, how does that change things for any other prospect? Or it should for someone like Michael Busch, should the Cubs just let him run at whatever position suits him best, or are there concerns if he can't play third base?
I mean, I think you got the bright side of this is that the Cubs have first base and third base pretty much unoccupied. I mean, like, they have it filled, but like pretty much unoccupied. So like whichever one works, I think is ultimately what you go for. I think that this trade also speaks volumes as how the Cubs think about Matt Mervis. I think that this probably, whatever kind of hope we were holding on to Matt Mervis being the first baseman in Chicago long term or short term, I think that like that probably doesn't look as good, because I think if you can bring Michael Busch and he's your third baseman this year potentially, and then push him over to first base when Matt Shaw is ready next year or later this year, whenever that might be, then there you go. You got two positions covered. So I think long term it speaks more towards Matt Mervis and what the Cubs think about him.
Yeah.
So what did you like about Ferris? I mean, Barb, the godmother here in the podcast, she's very upset. She says he's going to be better than Kershaw. What made him What made him such a great Cubs prospect? Why was he so popular among all the scouts?
Yes, I had Jackson Ferris ranked 8th in the Cubs organization as of right now. And I think with both of these guys, with Hope and with Jackson Ferris, I think what makes you react in a negative way, like losing these guys, is because, in my opinion, you're trading these two players before they've kind of reached that peak value as a prospect, in terms of how you can trade them away. We talked about on the Cubs on Deck podcast earlier this offseason about like guys that you could potentially be trading too early in their careers. And I think that with Jackson Ferris especially, like that's a guy that could ultimately be a top 50 prospect in all of baseball. And I mean, I know we got a guy in Michael Busch that is a top 50 prospect in all of baseball, but I think that Jackson Ferris is right now outside of top 100s. I think ultimately you might see him, and with the Dodgers, a top 50 guy in all of baseball. So it's more of you're trading him before he reaches that full value. Maybe you can get a better player down the road than a Michael Busch in return for Jackson Ferris. The the fastball is good. The curveball and sliders have really good movement on them. A lot of spin. Like this is a high spin rate guy in Jackson Ferris, and so I know that's a route the Cubs have loved to go recently with those high spin rate guys, and Jackson Ferris is definitely that guy.
But the further away they are, the harder it is to predict what the path will be. All you have to do is look at Brennan Davis. So it's about trading a guy at the right time. Now, you can't predict injuries and stuff like that, but he is a young pitcher, and you don't know what's going to happen, even health, let alone progressing as a player, but health-wise can come into it too. So there's risk in holding on to a guy too before a potential flaw or problem might come up as well. Let's see, Shane Newbanks in the chat, one of our regulars, says he'd like to trade Morel, Alcantara, Ballesteros, and Mervis for Luzardo. Who's in on that deal?
That's a lot, but I mean, he's young.
Well, let's
go ahead,
What
Greg.
do you think,
What do
Greg?
you think, Greg?
There's a lot of prospects in there.
Morel is the equivalent of a top 50 prospect in all of baseball in terms of like trade value, right? I think that Morel and Kevin Alcantara have similar-ish trade value. Ballesteros might be the trickiest player in the Cubs. It probably is the trickiest player in the Cubs organization to assign a value in terms of trades, because it's like it's entirely dependent on, is Ballesteros a catcher or not? Like if you're trading with a team that views Ballesteros as like they can make him a catcher at the major league level, then that's no joke, like a top 25, top 50 prospect in all of baseball. The more likely scenario is that he is a DH, and then at that point he's like not even close to a top 100 prospect. So there's a big difference between being able to catch at major league average value and being assigned to DH. And so, like, I don't know, you just got to be trading with the right team if you're trading Ballesteros away, because if a team values him as a DH, then you're not getting that value back in a trade.
Are you guys more scared because they're trading with the Dodgers?
The
Dodgers don't seem to make a ton of mistakes.
I was saying off air, I was telling our sales guy, Chris, that like the biggest mistake I feel like the Dodgers have made via trade was trading Yordan Alvarez for Josh Fields. But, yeah.
It's a bad one.
Yeah. But, I mean, they've made bold trades too. But the thing is they are the Dodgers. They have a bunch of star players on their team, and they're competitive year in and year out. They win their division every single year. No one talks about some of the mistakes that they've made because they win every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more than just Alvarez for Josh Fields on Andrew Friedman's list of mistakes, but we ain't sitting here talking about it. We sit here and talk about the Quintana trade all the time just because the Cubs haven't won. You know what I mean?
Greg, I know you tweeted out on your own ranking, like obviously you had Jackson Ferris at 8. You also had Zaire Hope at 13, I believe. So where would you set the over-under for number of top 15 guys who could be out of the organization, whether maybe in the next year, whether that's right now before spring training or during spring training or even during the season trade deadline stuff? Where would you set the over under?
Yeah, I'd set the over under before this upcoming trade deadline at like 2.5 of the top 15 prospects in the organization at this, like, starting now. They obviously just traded away Hope and Ferris, but I mean, I know that there's been a lot of speculation surrounding Alexander Canario being in a trade deal. James Triantos kind of fitting that mold of a guy that might get traded away. So I think that like there's your two. Do you think that more than that will go away in a trade? So I think 2.5 is probably like a safe over-under in terms of top 15 prospects going away.
Jack in the live YouTube chat saying, hey, it's official. The Cubs now have, with this deal, because we haven't played games yet, 7 top 100 prospects. So, listen, you are losing a guy that obviously was highly thought of and has high upside in the organization. But he's a pitcher, and he's a prospect, and I'd rather increase that number of top 100 guys to the number 7 than I would hold on to that. That's why it could end up being a bad deal, and I don't know enough about the individual players, but I like the fact that the window is moving up with those prospects. I'd rather have the top 100 prospects now than worry about who the top 100 prospects are in another year, because they can draft those guys and develop those guys out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that Cody kind of nailed it, right? Where it's like this trade, we're going to be angry. We would be angry about this trade because if Michael Bush ends up not being any good, we'd be more angry that he's not good before we'll be angry that Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope are very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so that makes it easier to stomach. You know what I mean? Versus like the Quintana trade back in the day. The Cubs they didn't win anything because of that. But also like Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease, they came up pretty fast. Like I think it was within a couple of years that Cease and Quintana were up with the White Sox. And so like, or Cease and Jimenez, my fault, we're up with the White Sox versus this Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope. Like they won't be up even if they do make the major leagues and they do kill it at the major league level. Like that's not until early 2027 at the earliest, I'd say. Like late 2026 if you're going wild. And so like I think we're more angry about Michael Bush not succeeding before we're angry about Ferris and Hope being good, if that makes sense.
And if Bush isn't the guy that they think they traded for, then Shaw's the next guy in the pipeline. You have a backup plan for that being a failure anyways.
Right.
No matter how that works out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Greg, obviously, like you follow the farm system very closely, done it for a few years. I mean, as far as depth goes, especially, I think one of the things we look at is like a lot of shortstop depth, right? Because those guys can move pretty much anywhere on the field, or a lot of outfielder depth because they can move all three positions. As far as depth goes on the position player side, on the Cubs and their farm system, what level are they at right now? Where again, if a guy like Michael Bush doesn't work out, they're not sweating it, right? Like they have the kind of depth where guys cannot work out, as prospects always do. Some tend to not work out, but that the Cubs can, weather that storm with other guys they have, or, obviously if they draft more guys like that as well.
Yeah, I think the depth is there so that like if multiple guys in the top, I don't know, say top 40 in the Cubs organization, if many of those guys fizzle out and don't become anything, then that's fine because there's still a lot more that will end up being like decent at the major league level, and there's a few that will end up being very good at the major league level. So like I think that depth is there, that you can afford several guys to fizzle out. You can afford to have multiple trades of prospects like Ferris and Hope and insert other like Canario or Triantos or whatever. You can afford to have all of that happen and still have a successful crop of prospects coming up from as it stands today.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the show, Greg. My thought process on this trade is that theoretically, with the way the Cubs have developed and drafted over these last handful of years, and you've followed this process for a handful of years now, so you know more than me. I'm just going based off of rankings. I'm going based off your insight, other people's insight from that aren't Cubs fans, right? Theoretically, how hard would it be for the Cubs to find another version of Jackson Ferris through a draft or whatever down the road? Like, is I guess what I'm asking is, was he a can't miss guy in the draft? Is he someone who could be a generational pitcher down the road?
I think it's tough to find. So with Ferris and Zaire Hope, both of these guys were drafted and signed as overslot guys. So Jackson Ferris got first round money, drafted in the second round. Zaire Hope was drafted in the 11th round and got like, I think 6th round money or so, 5th round, 6th round money. And so that's a tough thing to do, is sign high school players away from their college commitments. That's not always easy, especially when like you're drafting them rounds below where they are projected to go talent wise. So you have to be super creative. You have to be able to get a Cade Horton in the first round to sign at or below slot. You have to get multiple guys in rounds 5 through 9 to go under slot, so you can then go out and sign Zaire Hope. So like, it's just, you got to be super creative in the draft. And I think that Dan Kantrovitz has been really good at that. Like, he's been very good at that over the past few years, which made me happy that he didn't leave to go to the Mets this offseason. Because I think that if you're talking about a guy that drafts creatively, gets as much talent as you possibly can with your signing bonus allotment, like Dan Kantrovitz has been phenomenal the past few years.
Okay. I think that there's obvious reason to be a little afraid because Ferris could turn out to be very good. I've just never thought that I feel like I'm higher on Cade Horton than I was on Ferris. I feel like Cade Horton has a higher ceiling than Jackson Ferris. Of course, being a left-handed pitcher brings a lot of value, but I don't know. I think it's also easier for me since we probably ain't going to see him for 2-3 more years at the major league level.
Yeah, Cade Horton is significantly better than Jackson Ferris. Like that's, I don't think that. Like I tweeted out right when the trade was the Dodgers half of the trade was announced. I tweeted out, I was like, don't let it be the guy that I think it's going to be. Like it was never going to be Cade Horton. This trade was not going to include Cade Horton in it at all. I just didn't want it to be Jackson Ferris, and it was obviously. I think that in Jackson Ferris and the Cubs have another prospect, Drew Gray, who is very similar to Jackson Ferris in a lot of ways. Both high school draft picks. Drew Gray was drafted a year before Ferris, both out of IMG Academy in Florida. Both have high spin rate stuff. Like they're very similar pitchers in a lot of ways. And so I think that might be, you can look at this trade and say, you know what? Like, I think the Cubs really believe in Drew Gray. He had Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. I think they really believe in Drew Gray. And like, if you're choosing, I mean, obviously Jackson Ferris brings more value than Drew Gray, but it's like, I think the Cubs are hoping that Drew Gray ends up kind of popping under radars this year. And I think there's a good chance that actually happens.
Yeah, and like I told Cody, like even if they can't draft the next Jackson Ferris, the Cubs have the resources to go out and just sign a guy, go out and sign someone that would fill that spot. Like that's when we talk about the Dodgers and how just well-oiled machine run that organization is. They have the financial powerhouse side of it, and they also have the draft / player development side of it that all works well together. That's what the Cubs should be getting to. So even if the next Jackson Ferris isn't popping on the radar in the next couple of years, but they have all this money they can go and spend on a guy that could fill that role anyway in the starting rotation. I think that's when we talk about the Cubs, that's where they want to be, and that's where they're working at, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah, I think that my overall takeaway from this trade is I think it's a good trade. I think it's what you want to see the Cubs doing. Yeah, am I, as a prospect hugger, am I a little bit upset that it was Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope? Yeah, I would have liked to see it be a couple different prospects other than those two. But this is exactly the type of trade that you like to see the Cubs going after and doing. I think we should be happy. I think we should be happy about the Cubs completing this trade.
And what about the reliever? You know, some people think they're sleeping on the reliever that could be the next Merriweather. Like they're not. It's a guy who had a lot of success El Monte 2022, and then 23 was kind of not as good. But if they can harness what he was in 2022, that also gives great value to potentially this deal.
And he's likely to probably be somewhere as like a middle reliever, right?
Yeah,
and they needed someone like that. They needed more depth in the bullpen. So I'm content with bringing in a guy like that who you can immediately put in the bullpen. And I'm not like. When I say that I'm not worried, it's not that I don't think that, he might have a bad appearance or two or go through a bad stretch. It's more of how many times have we seen the Cubs bring a guy in who had a terrible ERA wherever it was, and then they turned him into a really, really good reliever for the Cubs. Julian Merriweather is like the perfect example.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about how the Cubs are planning to use him.
I know why Barb is worried. Barb's worried that the Dodgers said Rios was blocked here. You're going to want him as your third baseman. And now they're going to say Bush was blocked here. You're going to want him as your third baseman. Although I do have breaking news. The Dodgers have deferred payment on Jackson Ferris until 2040. No, just kidding. Hey, Greg, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Appreciate you jumping on in the middle of the day to give us some insight.
Yeah, I could choose between going and getting lunch or hopping on with you guys. I choose you guys every time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We appreciate
Credit
it.
to you.
Have a great weekend.
All right, man. Great. Thanks
guys.
See you, man.
The great Greg Huss. You can find
Woodside
him
Bound.
on Twitter. And Twitter is Outside the Vines?
Outside the Vines.
Outside the Vines. Or no, Out of the Vines, isn't it?
Out of the Vines.
Out of the
Barb
Vines.
was asking, who
Out
is
of
this
the
guy?
Vines.
I'm
Like
telling
us.
you,
He's an expert.
northsidebound.com.
Barb, he's an expert.
He's a
Expert on the
prospect
prospects.
nerd, and we talk about Brendan being a nerd, but we like it.
Hey,
in a good way.
Did you guys know it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles? That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and the well-being of all of us who share it.
I actually did, Luke. Right, the electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence toward an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
So what should business owners do, Cody?
Well, Luke, the chat, Ryan, Sarah, you should go to ComEd.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
I was so distracted by the Cubs' frenzy of activity. Cody, did you say ComEd.com/clean?
Yes, Luke. Go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come.
How long before we have that Bush shirt right in the CHGO locker? But I can guarantee you that Bush bobblehead is being made at Foco, Ryan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Foco, we love Foco here. Some of our set decorations are Foco. Cody, I went back and was watching the Christmas episode when Stucky Claus was around, and
Yes.
I saw him pull the overalls
Yes.
out of his.
And then I spent the first 10 minutes of the show trying to put them on over all the clothes I was wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, what did you say? Like when you wear this, you can't have a shirt on underneath or something.
Yeah, like I can't wear a sweatshirt. I was wearing a sweatshirt that day, and I was wearing pretty thick jeans too.
There we go.
So,
Oh, here we go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Show them off.
yes.
But yeah,
These
go
things.
get fitted out in the best sports gear around.
I'm gonna wear this to CubsCon.
Foco's got hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. It's almost baseball season. What are we, less than 5 weeks from pitchers and catchers reporting? So go get your Aloha shirts, which I love, straw hats, polos, bags, and everything you need for a game. Again, I said Foco's giving us some awesome set decorations for our sets. So go show them some love. Check out Foco.com or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO10 for 10% off. There you go.
All right,
Cody's
we got
like a hand model, showing off different things.
Thank you for reminding me because I did want to wear these to CubsCon this weekend.
There you go.
you're gonna give it a shot.
Yeah. But I'm definitely going to wear something different under it. I will be wearing something under it, no doubt. I cannot show up to CubsCon with just that on, with this weather that we're going to have. And it's not like I'm, rocking a Nicholas Moriano body over here either. So,
No, but 30 pounds down, you never know.
There you go.
Yeah, no, the journey continues. We're 7 pounds. Or 7
Six-pack
pounds
starting
down.
to show.
Yeah.
Starting to show.
Yeah, people are saying, I had someone at the gym today, they said something.
They were like, oh,
Well, hey.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Delmetrics are, but that guy seems down 10 maybe. Right? Niran, yes, you are an expert too. We're all experts. Nobody's asking for all experts here either.
No, I'm not even trying.
Informed evaluation is all I'm looking for.
I'm not even trying to say that you can't feel down on this trade. It's just I think we've given a good enough explanation to why you should be optimistic about it. And if you've sat here the last hour and you don't agree with it still, then I got nothing else for you except for we will remember whenever we get down the road. And if Michael Bush and Yinzi Almonte turn out to be pretty good, I mean, you can give us all the credit in the world. All right. So
Chad just looked at the Almonte ERA. Yeah, it was not good last year. 5-ish.
5-ish. Yeah.
5-ish, not good. But the year before only gave up 4 runs in 34 innings.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Delmetrics says he's an even year guy, and we're going into 2024.
That's what matters.
So we'll see.
We only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah,
we
before
really
we
don't even
go-
have time, but go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say we should talk about the
Arbitration.
deadline
The
to
ARBs, yeah.
the deadline to agree before filing for arbitration or filing arbitration numbers passed today. Looking at most of the numbers, we got ALLCITY and Cubs settling at $2.11 million.
Deal.
Mark Leiter $1.5 million.
Steal.
Nick Madrigal $1.81
Bargain.
million. Justin Steele $4 million. We're talking about a top 5 Cy Young finisher.
Unbelievable bargain.
And Mike Talkman $1.95 million. Comparing them
Deal
to
of the
what
century.
comparing them to what MLB trade rumors put out prior or I think Actually, I think it was before the offseason started. Right around there. Julian Merriweather's another one. I haven't seen the salary numbers yet, but it was reported that they did avoid arbitration with Merriweather. So it looks like no cases are going to arbitration. And that'll be off the top of my head for sure the second year in a row that the Cubs avoided all arbitration with all their arbitration eligible players, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing that I think it shows that both sides are willing to meet in the middle somewhere on different things. And look what happened with Corbin Burns and the Brewers. Was it last year's arbitration that he was really pissed off about it afterwards?
Yes.
Like those things, and you know, business is business, but things can get kind of ugly and can, in some cases, ruin relationships between players and organizations. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I it's a good sign that both sides are willing to work on a deal prior and not just go to arbitration. And obviously for the Cubs to continue to be able to get all their players signed to contracts and not having to go to arbitration. That's a good sign for the organization and what kind of how they treat their players and how the players feel and just their ability to, you know, obviously meet in the middle on certain things.
Justin Steele tweeted like before the show started, so like an hour ago, that God is good. So you know,
assuming that refers to the.
I'm assuming it was
the Reds,
related to that. So you know, I agree wholeheartedly in what you're saying in terms of how important it is to avoid going to arbitration with a lot of these dudes. You know, the Cardinals had a similar guy. I want to say it was Tyler O'Neill last year. I could be wrong on that, but they ended up trading him, whatever. But you know, you like to see the Cubs maintaining a really as good of a relationship they can with players when it comes to this type of stuff. So, yeah, I'm happy that they didn't have any issues.
Real quick, we have 1 minute for a quick game of Cub or not a Cub.
You got covered.
We were just throwing out names the other day. I got 5 names here. Okay. As we head to Cubs convention, and you'll see all kinds of jerseys out there. You might even see a Busch jersey. We don't know. If you go there and you're looking, people are already getting the Busch bats ready for signing. See if they can get them here. Bad weather on the way. All right, 5 names. Dennis Lamp, Cub or not a Cub?
Not a Cub.
Cub.
Aha. Late 70s pitcher.
Okay.
Don Paul. Don the Pope Paul.
Cub.
Not a Cub. Oh.
Okay. I'll go Cub.
Cub and White Sox pitcher.
Okay, tied up.
You had a nickname to it. It gave it away.
I thought he just like kind of
the Pope, Don Paul. That was
sounds like a baseball nickname.
Marty Lloyd.
Not a Cub.
Not a Cub.
Not a Cub. Front man for the Freddie Jones Band.
Okay.
Bert Hooton.
Cub.
Yes.
Yeah, Cubs
right,
pitcher. That's
comes
right.
down to this.
Cubs and Dodgers. And Dave Owen.
Cub.
Yes, game-winning RBI in what game? The Sandberg game.
Sandberg game.
His
name sounded
RBI.
familiar.
Dave Owen went to work
definitely
for the
had
Royals.
heard that name before.
Spike Owen is his brother. Also played in the major leagues.
Okay.
Anyway.
The more you know.
Barb, we have it down on record. You don't like the deal. Godfather doesn't. We've acknowledged it. I'm not saying it couldn't be a bad deal down the road. The Cubs have made a deal. I'm just glad they're doing something, so we have something to talk about.
Yeah, we'll file the godparents.
We're filing the godparents
for a later date.
Yes. However, credit to everyone else who's on board and likes the trade. I appreciate y'all's positivity. We needed some of it because this offseason's been boring, bro. Nice to see Jed didn't go back into hibernation. Now sign Bellinger and let's ride in 2024.
That's right. Thanks for all like 400 plus. We're on here on the live YouTube chat, in and out throughout the show. We only got 106 thumbs up. Hit some of those on the way out.
We're 380
we appreciate it.
In here right now. So
hope
you
to
can hit
see
the
you
like
out at
button
Cubs convention. Travel safely if the weather is bad. And if there's more breaking news, we'll have a breaking news podcast later today or this weekend or whenever it might happen. Until then, thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Podcast. We'll see you next time. Fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.